Have you ever been hurt by someone's words, their actions, or even their silence, and felt that instant surge of anger, the desire to lash out, to defend yourself, to make them pay for how they made you feel? That instinct is natural, it's human. But what if I told you that giving in to that instinct is the single most dangerous thing you can do to yourself? That reacting in the heat of the moment, no matter how justified it feels, is exactly what keeps you trapped, powerless, and enslaved by other people's behavior. Imagine this: every time someone hurts you, and you respond immediately, you give them control over your emotions. You let them dictate your mood, your energy, your peace of mind. Suddenly, your day, your focus, even your future starts to bend around what they did or said. And yet most people don't realize it. They think reacting is strength. They think getting even is justice. But in reality, reacting is giving away power. You can never get back. Here's the secret that most people don't understand. True strength isn't measured by how loudly you defend yourself or how quickly you strike back. True strength is measured by your ability to pause, to breathe, to hold your ground without surrendering your peace. It's the ability to walk away from the provocation while others are still lost in chaos. It's the ability to rise above the moment when everyone else is dragged into it. So I want you to ask yourself, how many times have you let someone else's hurtful words or actions control your life? How many moments of frustration, regret, or shame could have been avoided if you had simply stayed silent, if you had chosen restraint over reaction? Today, we're going to explore why the greatest power you can ever have isn't in responding to every attack, but in mastering the art of not reacting at all. By the end of this speech, you'll understand why every moment you resist reacting builds your strength, protects your integrity, and sets you apart from those who let their emotions control them. You'll discover how to turn hurt into power, pain into clarity, and provocation into your personal advantage. Because once you learn this lesson, no one will ever have the ability to steal your peace again. Emotions are powerful. They surge through your body like wildfire, igniting anger, frustration, hurt, or even shame. When someone insults you, betrays you, or dismisses you, that wave hits instantly. Your heart races, your blood boils, your mind shouts, say something, defend yourself, fight back, and in that moment it feels like reacting is the only option. But here's the truth: just because you feel something doesn't mean you have to act on it. The very moment you understand that distinction is the moment you reclaim control over your life. Most people think that emotions are commands and confuse feeling with obligation. If someone hurts them, they believe they must retaliate. If someone offends them, they believe they must respond immediately. That instinct is so deeply wired that we rarely stop to question it. But reacting impulsively is almost always a mistake. It escalates conflicts, damages relationships, and often leaves lasting regrets. Emotions are signals. They are indicators of what's happening inside you, but they are not instructions to act. Imagine for a moment that your emotions are like a storm at sea. The wind howls, the waves crash, the water churns violently around you. Most people see that storm and immediately try to swim against it. They lash out, they respond in anger, they throw words like weapons, but every stroke against the storm exhausts them, leaves them vulnerable, and rarely changes the weather. The wise, the strong, the self-disciplined, they wait, they anchor themselves, they let the storm pass, using the energy of the waves to navigate rather than fight against them. That's the difference between reacting and choosing not to react. One of the reasons people react so quickly is that reacting feels satisfying in the short term. It gives you an illusion of control. You get to vent, defend, or assert yourself. But that satisfaction is temporary. What comes after the reaction is often chaos, broken relationships, ruined opportunities, and a lingering sense that you have lost your dignity. When you pause, however, when you resist that immediate urge, you gain something far more valuable than momentary satisfaction: clarity. When you don't react in the heat of the moment, you create space to see the bigger picture. You can assess the situation rationally. You can decide the best course of action rather than letting your emotions dictate it. Emotions are intense, but they are not permanent. Anger fades, hurt softens, frustration diminishes. Reacting too quickly, however, makes those feelings permanent in the form of consequences you cannot take back. Every argument you enter in the heat of emotion, every harsh word you speak, every impulsive response leaves a mark, sometimes on someone else, but more often on yourself. That mark can be regret, guilt, or even damage to your reputation. The people who master themselves understand that feelings are temporary, but actions are permanent. Think about it. How many moments in your life have you reacted and immediately wished you hadn't? Maybe it was a fight with a friend, a disagreement with a coworker, or a clash with a family member. In those moments, the heat of emotion convinced you that reacting was necessary. But afterward, you realized the reaction didn't solve anything. It didn't make the person who hurt you see your value. It didn't change the situation. It only cost you your peace and your control. Here's where the real power lies. Recognizing that while emotions are inevitable, reactions are optional. You cannot stop the storm of feelings from coming, but you can choose how to navigate through it. You can decide not to give them the power to control your actions, your words, or your mindset. You can step back, breathe, and allow your rational mind to guide your behavior instead of your impulses. That is where true strength begins. Resisting the urge to react requires discipline, yes, but it also requires perspective. Often the people who hurt us act from their own insecurities, fears, or ignorance. Their actions may sting, but they reveal more about them than about you. When you react impulsively, you allow them to drag you into their chaos. When you pause, you maintain your dignity, your composure, and your authority over your own life. You become untouchable, not because you are immune to emotion, but because you refuse to be controlled by it. And let's not underestimate the long-term effect of choosing not to react. Every time you resist reacting, you build emotional intelligence. You train yourself to recognize triggers, manage impulses, and maintain perspective. Over time, this strengthens your confidence, your resilience, and your sense of inner power. People will notice it in you. They will notice that you cannot be easily provoked, that your peace is non-negotiable, and that your responses are measured and thoughtful. That is a level of respect no immediate reaction can ever earn. Finally, remember this. Life will continuously present opportunities for you to react. Every insult, betrayal, and slight is a test of your self-control. You cannot control what others do or say, but you can control your response. That control is priceless. It separates those who live with integrity from those who live in regret. It separates leaders from followers. It separates the strong from the reactive. Choosing not to react does not make you passive. It makes you powerful. So the next time someone hurts you, pause, take a breath, acknowledge your feelings, but do not let them dictate your actions. Remember that every reaction carries consequences, but every moment of restraint builds your strength, protects your peace, and demonstrates your power. Emotions are real, intense, and unavoidable, but how you respond to them is entirely your choice. And in that choice lies the key to a life of dignity, respect, and true mastery over yourself. There is a profound strength in silence that most people never fully understand. Silence is not emptiness, and it is not weakness. It is a deliberate choice, a tool, and a form of power that allows you to maintain control over yourself and your circumstances. When someone hurts you, when they provoke you, when they try to drag you into chaos, silence becomes your shield. It is in silence that you protect your dignity, preserve your energy, and gain clarity about what truly matters. Most people respond immediately because they cannot tolerate the quiet. They fear the pause, the stillness, the moment where they are left alone with their thoughts and emotions. Silence forces you to confront reality without distraction. It gives you space to evaluate the situation rationally, to consider the consequences of your words, and to decide whether engaging will serve your purpose or simply feed someone else's drama. Choosing silence over reaction is not passive, it is strategic. It is the act of recognizing that your peace is more valuable than momentary satisfaction. Silence has a unique way of conveying strength that words often cannot. When you respond to every insult, every slight, every attack with words, you give the other person attention and power. They feel validated because they have elicited a response. But when you remain silent, you withhold that power. You demonstrate that their actions do not control you, that your emotions are yours to govern, and that you are not easily manipulated. Silence communicates more about your character than any argument ever could. It shows that you are confident, composed, and untouchable by petty provocations. In many situations, silence can be the most eloquent response. Imagine someone tries to humiliate you in front of others or criticizes you unfairly. If you immediately argue back, you are playing by their rules. You have entered the arena of their chaos. But if you remain silent, you rise above it. Your calmness becomes a statement of power. Others begin to notice it. Your integrity speaks louder than any words could. People respect those who can maintain their composure under pressure, because it shows mastery over self, and mastery over self is the highest form of strength. Silence also allows you to process your emotions without being consumed by them. When we react impulsively, we often say or do things we later regret because our judgment is clouded by anger or hurt. By pausing, by embracing silence, you give yourself time to breathe, to reflect, and to respond in a way that serves your long-term interests, rather than the fleeting desire for immediate revenge. This is not denial of emotion, it is discipline. It is acknowledging your feelings without allowing them to dictate your actions. There is also a psychological advantage to silence. People who are used to provoking reactions often expect immediate responses. They thrive on the chaos they create. When you deny them that reaction, you disrupt their pattern. You take control of the narrative and demonstrate that your life is not dictated by others' whims. Silence can unsettle those who seek to manipulate or provoke you, because it removes the satisfaction they crave. It shifts the power dynamic in your favor without you having to lift a finger. Moreover, silence is a form of self-respect. Every time you resist the urge to argue, to defend, or to retaliate, you are affirming that your peace is non-negotiable. You are showing yourself that you value your mental and emotional energy above temporary satisfaction or validation. This discipline strengthens your confidence and builds resilience. You learn that you do not need external approval or engagement to feel whole. Your self-worth is self-determined, and that realization transforms every aspect of your life. Silence also protects your relationships and reputation. Many conflicts escalate unnecessarily because people react before thinking. Harsh words said in anger can damage friendships, professional relationships, and family bonds. By choosing silence, you reduce the risk of causing harm that cannot be undone. You maintain respect for yourself and others while avoiding unnecessary conflict. In this way, silence is not avoidance, it is prevention. It prevents regret, it prevents escalation, and it prevents loss of credibility. Furthermore, silence fosters patience and long-term thinking. When you allow yourself to pause, you give your mind the space to strategize. You can plan your next move, decide whether to engage at all, or let time resolve the situation. The ability to delay reaction in favor of thoughtful response is a hallmark of emotional intelligence. It enables you to make decisions from a place of power rather than weakness, from a place of strategy rather than impulse. Silence also cultivates inner peace. Every time you resist reacting to provocation, you affirm that your happiness is not dependent on external circumstances. You develop the confidence to face challenges without fear, the calm to endure conflict without losing yourself, and the clarity to focus on what truly matters. In the absence of constant reaction, you find freedom. You learn that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the mastery of your response to it. Finally, silence is transformative. It teaches you patience, strength, control, and self-respect. It shapes your character and builds your resilience. The people who master silence are often the ones who achieve the most, not because they fight the hardest, but because they conserve their energy, choose their battles wisely, and maintain clarity of purpose. They understand that not every insult, every attack, or every provocation requires a response. Their power lies in the restraint they exercise, the dignity they maintain, and the peace they protect. So the next time someone tries to hurt you, Remember that silence is your ally. It is not weakness, it is strength. It is not avoidance. It is strategy. It is not surrender. It is mastery. By embracing silence, you preserve your dignity, maintain control, and create space for clarity, growth, and inner peace. The world will test you relentlessly, but silence will always remind you that your power is not in your words or reactions, but in your ability to choose them wisely. When someone hurts you, the natural instinct is to take it personally, to feel attacked, or to react in anger. It's easy to think that their words, actions, or behavior define you. But the truth is far from that. What people do often reflects their own struggles, insecurities, and fears, not your worth or your value. Understanding the behavior of the person who hurts you is one of the most powerful tools you can have in maintaining control over your emotions and preserving your peace. Human behavior is complex, and people rarely act without reason, even if the reason is rooted in ignorance, fear, or unresolved pain. Someone who insults, belittles, or disrespects you is often projecting their own insecurities onto you. They may feel inadequate, jealous, or powerless in their own life, and your presence, success, or confidence threatens the fragile sense of control they cling to. When you realize this, you stop taking their behavior personally. You recognize that their hurtful words or actions say far more about them than they do about you. Consider how liberating it is to step back and observe someone's behavior without immediately reacting. Instead of feeling wounded or defensive, you begin to see patterns. Perhaps this person reacts aggressively when they feel vulnerable. Perhaps they attempt to control or manipulate to cover their own uncertainty. Perhaps their criticism is rooted not in truth, but in comparison and envy. Understanding this shifts your perspective from emotional reaction to analytical observation. Suddenly, their attack loses its power to hurt you. Most people fail to understand this because they are caught up in the moment. When someone offends them, they feel the sting immediately, and the mind goes straight to retaliation. But the moment you start examining the underlying motives behind someone's actions, you reclaim your power. You understand that their behavior is a reflection of their character, their mindset, and their unresolved issues. This insight allows you to respond with wisdom rather than react with emotion. It's also important to recognize that some people will never change, and that their hurtful behavior is a permanent reflection of who they are. Not everyone you encounter is capable of respecting your boundaries, appreciating your worth, or treating you with dignity. When you accept this truth, you no longer waste energy trying to change them. Instead, you focus on controlling what you can, your response, your peace, and your decisions about who gets to remain in your life. Understanding that their actions are not about you allows you to detach emotionally while still maintaining clarity and control. Empathy plays a surprising role in understanding others' behavior. While it may seem counterintuitive, putting yourself in the shoes of someone who hurts you doesn't justify their actions. It simply allows you to see the human flaws behind them. Perhaps they were raised in an environment where anger was expressed through attack, or perhaps they are carrying wounds from their own life experiences. By recognizing that their behavior is a product of their past, you prevent yourself from internalizing it. You begin to see the person as flawed like everyone else, and not as someone whose words define your reality. Understanding the behavior of others also frees you from the illusion of control. You cannot dictate how people act, how they speak, or how they treat you. You can influence them through your actions, but you cannot force change. When you accept this, you stop expending energy on frustration, resentment, and retaliation. You stop reacting impulsively and start conserving your energy for what truly matters: your growth, your peace, and your goals. It's also critical to realize that people who hurt you are often looking for a reaction. They want to provoke you because they sense that it can shift the dynamic in their favor. The more they succeed in eliciting an emotional response, the more control they feel they have. Understanding this gives you the upper hand. When you refuse to react, when you maintain composure, you deny them the satisfaction they seek. Their power diminishes, and your strength multiplies. Recognizing the strategic nature of their behavior allows you to rise above the situation rather than be dragged into it. Another aspect of understanding others' behavior is learning not to take responsibility for their emotions. Just because someone chooses to be hurtful does not mean you are responsible for their feelings, their ego, or their happiness. People who attack you are acting from their own internal turmoil. Their actions are theirs alone, and you have no obligation to absorb or fix them. By understanding this, you protect yourself from emotional manipulation and avoid reacting in ways that compromise your integrity or peace. This understanding also allows you to set boundaries effectively. Once you see the patterns behind someone's behavior, you can make informed decisions about the type of engagement, if any, you will allow. You can choose distance, silence, or measured responses that protect your well-being. You learn to interact strategically rather than impulsively, which strengthens your sense of agency. You stop being a passive participant in your own life and become an active manager of your environment. Ultimately, understanding the behavior of those who hurt you transforms pain into insight. Every insult, slight, or act of disrespect becomes a lesson in human psychology, emotional intelligence, and self-mastery. You begin to see that the world is not out to get you. It is full of people navigating their own fears and insecurities. By observing and understanding without reacting, you gain perspective, maintain dignity, and position yourself as someone unshakable, untouchable, and wise. When you fully grasp this, you realize that being hurt by someone else does not have to derail your life. Their actions are a reflection of them, not a verdict on your worth. You are no longer a puppet of their behavior. You are a master of your response. You are free to act strategically, maintain peace, and continue moving toward your purpose without distraction. Understanding others' behavior is not just a lesson in psychology. It is a key to freedom, self-control, and personal power. The choice, then, is yours. You can let hurtful people dictate your mood, your reactions, and your energy, or you can observe, understand, and rise above. By taking the latter path, you turn every attempt to harm you into an opportunity to demonstrate strength, wisdom, and mastery over yourself. And in doing so, you create a life where no one else's words or actions can steal your peace or diminish your power. When someone hurts you, the difference between reacting and responding can define the trajectory of your life. Emotional reactions are instinctive, impulsive, and often destructive. They erupt from a place of anger, frustration, or fear, and they rarely serve your long-term interests. Strategic responses, on the other hand, are deliberate, measured, and purposeful. They come from a place of awareness, discipline, and control. Learning to respond strategically rather than reacting emotionally is one of the most powerful skills you can develop, and it separates those who are controlled by circumstance from those who master their circumstances. Emotional reactions feel urgent. The mind convinces you that you must act immediately, that if you do not lash out or defend yourself, you are weak or powerless. When someone insults you, betrays you, or disrespects you, that surge of emotion pushes you to act before thinking. You speak words you later regret, make decisions you later question, and sometimes even damage relationships that could have been preserved. Reacting is a surrender of control. It is letting someone else's actions dictate your behavior, your mood, and your life. A strategic response, however, requires pause. It requires you to step back from the situation, to acknowledge your feelings, and to ask yourself, what outcome do I want? What action serves my purpose, protects my dignity, and maintains my peace? This pause is not hesitation, it is power. It allows you to act from strength rather than impulse, to make choices that reflect your values rather than the heat of the moment. The more often you practice this pause, the stronger your emotional discipline becomes. Consider how much energy is wasted in reaction. When you immediately respond to provocation, you give your attention, your time, and your mental energy to someone who may not deserve it. You expend resources that could have been devoted to personal growth, productivity, or meaningful relationships. Strategic responses conserve energy. They allow you to evaluate the situation, to choose the right words or actions, and to respond in a way that maximizes effectiveness while minimizing damage. Strategic responses also create long-term respect. People can sense the difference between someone who reacts impulsively and someone who responds deliberately. When you respond with composure and clarity, you demonstrate control, wisdom, and maturity. You show that your power does not depend on intimidation or drama, but on your ability to act with intention. Others begin to treat you differently. They recognize that you are not easily manipulated, provoked, or controlled. In this way, strategic responses enhance your influence, reputation, and authority. The first step to developing a strategic response is self-awareness. You must recognize your triggers, those specific words, actions, or situations that provoke intense emotions. Understanding what triggers you allows you to prepare mentally and emotionally for challenges before they arise. It is easier to remain composed when you know your hot buttons and have a plan for how to handle them. This preparation is not avoidance. It is mastery. Another essential element is patience. Responding strategically often requires waiting for the right moment. Immediate emotional reactions rarely produce the desired outcome. Waiting allows you to gather information, assess the motivations of the other person, and determine the most effective course of action. It also allows emotions to settle. Anger, hurt, and frustration are powerful in the moment but diminish over time. By waiting, you can respond rationally rather than impulsively, which is always more effective in resolving conflicts and maintaining relationships. It's also important to understand the power of choice in every interaction. You always have the option to respond strategically, to respond calmly, or even to remain silent. Choosing not to react is a strategic decision in itself. It demonstrates that you are in control of your behavior, that your actions are not dictated by anyone else, and that you prioritize your long-term well-being over temporary satisfaction. Every time you make this choice, you strengthen your emotional resilience and assert your independence from others' attempts to provoke you. Strategic responses also involve communication. When you do decide to respond, you must choose words and actions carefully. Speak with clarity without emotion-driven aggression. Set boundaries without hostility. Express your truth without surrendering your peace. A strategic response communicates your strength, intelligence, and self-respect rather than feeding the conflict or giving power to someone else's aggression. Many people underestimate the long-term impact of strategic responses. Reacting may feel satisfying in the moment, but it often carries consequences that last far beyond the incident itself. Bridges can be burned, reputations tarnished, and opportunities lost. Strategic responses minimize these risks. They allow you to protect relationships, maintain integrity, and navigate difficult situations in a way that aligns with your long-term goals. Over time, this pattern of behavior builds trust, respect, and influence that cannot be achieved through reactive behavior. It's also worth noting that strategic responses require emotional regulation. You must acknowledge your feelings without allowing them to dictate your actions. This requires practice, self-discipline, and sometimes external techniques, breathing exercises, journaling, meditation, or even walking away for a moment to collect your thoughts. The goal is not to suppress emotion, but to control its influence over your decisions. Mastering this control is one of the hallmarks of personal power and mental strength. Finally, strategic responses turn every challenge into an opportunity. When someone hurts you, instead of viewing it as an attack, you can see it as a test of your character, patience, and discipline. Each provocation becomes a chance to demonstrate self-control, to model integrity, and to strengthen your capacity to navigate life's difficulties without being shaken. Over time, this approach not only protects you from unnecessary conflict, but also elevates you above situations where others remain trapped in reactive behavior. Choosing to respond strategically rather than reacting emotionally is not easy. It requires awareness, patience, discipline, and practice. But it is one of the most powerful ways to maintain control over your life, protect your peace, and demonstrate strength. Every time you respond strategically, You reinforce the truth that your life is not determined by the actions of others, but by your ability to navigate those actions with wisdom, clarity, and composure. In a world that constantly tests your patience and provokes your emotions, mastering this skill separates the strong from the reactive, the successful from the distracted, and the empowered from the controlled. True strength and lasting fulfillment are built not in the heat of the moment, but in the quiet decisions we make when no one is watching. When someone hurts you, when provocation arises, or when injustice is placed before you, it is tempting to react immediately, to lash out, to speak harshly, to demand instant satisfaction. That temptation is powerful because it appeals to a primitive part of the brain that craves immediate gratification. But yielding to that impulse comes at a cost. It sacrifices your long-term growth, your control, and your inner peace for a fleeting moment of relief. Growth is rarely instantaneous. It is forged in moments of discipline, in the choice to prioritize what matters over what feels urgent. Every time you resist reacting impulsively, you are training yourself to think beyond the immediate moment. You are choosing to invest in your future self rather than surrendering to the emotional chaos of the present. The person who can remain composed under attack is the person who is consistently building strength, character, and resilience. Growth requires this kind of conscious effort, the willingness to delay reaction, to learn from the situation, and to respond in ways that enhance your life rather than diminish it. Control is intimately linked to growth. The moment you react impulsively, you relinquish control of yourself to the person who has provoked you. Your emotions, your words, and your actions are hijacked by their behavior. But when you pause, reflect, and respond strategically, or even choose silence, you reclaim that power. Control is the ability to decide how you will act, when you will act, and whether you will act at all. It is the recognition that no one else has authority over your inner world unless you allow it. Each time you exercise control in the face of provocation, you strengthen your sense of agency, your confidence, and your self-respect. Inner peace. The third pillar is the ultimate reward for mastering growth and control. Immediate reactions rarely produce peace. Anger, regret, guilt, and escalating conflict follow in their wake. But when you prioritize long-term composure over short-term satisfaction, you maintain a calmness that is unshakable. You preserve your dignity and refuse to let someone else's actions dictate the quality of your day, your week, or your life. Inner peace is the foundation for clarity, wisdom, and effective decision-making. Without it, you are constantly at the mercy of external circumstances and other people's behavior. Consider the power of reframing your perspective. When someone hurts you, instead of viewing the situation as an attack, see it as an opportunity. Every provocation is a chance to practice patience, emotional intelligence, and self-discipline. Every insult is a test of your ability to rise above. Every betrayal is an invitation to strengthen your inner boundaries. By focusing on growth, control, and inner peace, rather than the fleeting satisfaction of immediate retaliation, you transform what appears to be a negative event into a tool for personal development. Immediate satisfaction is seductive because it feels like relief, but it is deceptive. Reacting impulsively can create more problems than it solves. Relationships may be damaged, trust eroded, and opportunities lost. You may feel temporarily vindicated, but the underlying issues remain unresolved, and often your actions complicate them further. Growth, control, and inner peace are antidotes to this cycle. They allow you to navigate conflict with intelligence rather than emotion, to choose your battles wisely, and to maintain your long-term goals without being derailed by temporary setbacks. The discipline required to prioritize long-term outcomes over short-term impulses also strengthens your resilience. Life will continually present challenges, provocations, and disappointments. The more often you choose restraint, reflection, and strategic response, the more resistant you become to being thrown off course. Emotional triggers lose their power over you. Criticism, betrayal, and conflict become manageable, and your focus remains on the path that aligns with your purpose and values. Over time, this creates a momentum of personal growth that no immediate reaction can match. Another aspect of this approach is self-respect. Every time you resist the urge to retaliate, you affirm your own value. You send a message, first and foremost to yourself, that your peace is non-negotiable, that you will not compromise your dignity for a momentary emotional win. This reinforces your confidence and strengthens the boundaries you establish in your life. People may continue to test you, but your consistency in choosing growth, control, and inner peace signals that you are not easily shaken or manipulated. It is important to note that growth, control, and inner peace do not mean passivity. They do not mean that you ignore injustice, that you allow abuse, or that you fail to set boundaries. They mean that you act from a place of power rather than reaction. You choose your responses consciously with clarity and intention rather than being swept away by the tides of emotion. This approach allows you to navigate even the most challenging situations with integrity and effectiveness. Finally, embracing growth, control, and inner peace allows you to focus on what truly matters. Life is too short to waste energy on petty conflicts, impulsive retaliation, or emotional chaos caused by others. By prioritizing your long-term well-being over immediate gratification, you preserve your energy, your clarity, and your ability to pursue meaningful goals. You learn to invest in yourself rather than investing in temporary victories that ultimately cost more than they are worth. Choosing growth over immediate satisfaction transforms the way you experience life. You become disciplined, composed, and empowered. You protect your peace, your dignity, and your future. You learn that your reactions are not obligations, they are choices, and the best choice is often the one that strengthens you rather than diminishes you. When you master this, you no longer fear provocation or hurt. You rise above, unshaken, and in control. Because true power is not in reacting to the world, it is in commanding yourself. At the end of the day, life will always test your patience, your discipline, and your ability to rise above hurt. People will insult you, betray you, or try to provoke you. They will seek to manipulate your emotions, challenge your boundaries, and steal your peace. But the power does not lie in reacting. It lies in your ability to control yourself, to respond with intention, and to protect your dignity. Every moment you resist the urge to react, every instance you choose silence over chaos, and every decision to prioritize growth, control, and inner peace strengthens you in ways that immediate retaliation never could. Remember this, reacting in anger may feel satisfying for a moment, but it always comes at a cost. It diminishes your power, clouds your judgment, and leaves a mark you may regret. Choosing restraint, strategic response, and emotional mastery, on the other hand, builds resilience, commands respect, and elevates your life. It is not weakness to pause. It is not passivity to remain silent. It is strength. It is wisdom. It is freedom. Your life is too valuable to hand over control to someone else's words, actions, or provocations. Every time you master your response, you reclaim your power. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you protect your peace. Every time you choose strategy over impulse, you build a life of dignity, purpose, and inner strength. So the next time someone hurts you, remember this: your peace is more important than their provocation. Your growth is more important than their attack. Your integrity is more important than fleeting satisfaction. Stand firm. Pause, reflect, respond, or don't respond at all. Never allow anyone else to steal your calm, your clarity, or your power, because true strength is not measured by how quickly you react, but by how masterfully you control yourself in the face of hurt. The world will try to pull you into chaos. Your choice determines whether you succumb or rise above. Choose to rise. Choose silence. Choose restraint. Choose yourself. And know this: by doing so, you become unstoppable, unshakable, and untouchable.